Back in 2016, Elon Musk finally put his foot down to start a company that could tackle soul-destroying traffic inspired by his horrendous commute in LA. He announced that he was going to build a tunnel boring machine and just start digging, which he in fact did. Thus, the Boring Company was founded on December 17, 2016, partially as a complete joke, with the name coming from Elon Musk's now ex-wife, Tallulah Riley. Boring Company was originally formed within SpaceX and later became a separate company in 2018, where SpaceX held a 6% share and Elon Musk a 90% share of the firm. Despite Elon's large ownership position, he has stated on multiple occasions that he spends roughly just 3% of his time on the company, making it somewhat of a hobby compared to SpaceX and Tesla. Now, Tesla is not directly involved with the Boring Company's operations or ownership, so at first glance it may seem like the EV maker and the Boring Company have nothing in common besides Elon Musk. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Tesla has massive potential to grow alongside the tunnel-digging firm and stands to benefit tremendously from the Boring Company. In April 2017, during a TED Talk, Elon Musk criticized the LA subway extension, which was just 2.5 miles long but cost $2 billion to construct. His Boring Company set out to achieve an order of magnitude improvement in cost. The first thing they planned to do was cut the size of the tunnel diameter down. A single-lane road typically is on the order of 26 feet in diameter to allow for emergency vehicles. A tunnel of at least this size is also usually needed for ventilation for combustion cars. Elon calculated that by cutting the diameter by a factor of 2, this reduces the cross-sectional area by a factor of 4. And since the cost of the tunnel is closely tied to the cross-sectional area, then the cost would thus also be reduced by 4 times. Currently, all of the Boring Company's projects are for 12-foot tunnels, which means they can use their standard boring machine for everything and don't need to make any changes between projects, whether it's tunnels for vehicles, pedestrians, freight, or utilities. Secondly, tunneling machines spend time tunneling, but then they stop to put in reinforcements before starting up again. Continuous tunneling and adding reinforcements speeds up the process by a factor of 2. The Boring Company has done this already with its in-house built design, and they've also been able to increase the boring machine power and thermal limits, in addition to automating the machine to reduce the number of human operators. All of these steps increase speed and efficiency while reducing cost. There's also the challenge of removing the dirt that's dug up, which could be about 1/6 of the cost of the tunnel project. However, the dirt is turned into bricks and sold for 10 cents each or given away for affordable housing projects. The bricks alone could pay for the tunnel, and it may even be possible to use them as part of the reinforcements, cutting costs even further. Not to mention that the entire process is environmentally sustainable, with the machine running fully on electricity, and the tunnel itself is very safe and robust. It keeps out the water table and is earthquake-proof and weatherproof. While some naysayers may say that building tunnels would just add additional traffic underground, Elon Musk has countered this by saying that any number of tunnel levels can be constructed, since you could dig downward far deeper than you can build upward. As Elon says, the deepest mines are much deeper than the tallest buildings. While the boring tunnels don't look like much, they're actually quite revolutionary. Many people mistake their simplicity for a lack of innovation. However, the innovation isn't exactly in the tunnel itself, but rather in the machine that builds the tunnel. Compared to other tunneling projects, Boring's machinery can allow for 10 times the speed and just 1% of the cost. With just the improvements so far, the price of tunneling has so far dropped dramatically, and the Boring Company is still in its infancy. The Las Vegas Convention Center, or Lvcc Loop, was built for about $47 million for 2 tunnels and 3 stations, 2 of which are on the surface and 1 is underground. This is a high-traffic area in Las Vegas where Boring Company can show off its proof of concept. But at a mere $27 million per mile, it's just a fraction, almost 40 times cheaper than the $1 billion per mile that it costed other tunnel projects. But the crazy thing is that the Boring Company is just getting started. This Lvcc Loop tunnel was dug just using the second-generation tunnel boring machine named Godot. This was a machine that was acquired from a Canadian company named Lovat, which is owned by Caterpillar, that's been modified by the Boring Company. Since then, the Boring Company has improved significantly and now has an in-house designed device called Prufrock, which is about 5 times faster than the original machine acquired from Lovat. With this new machine, the Boring Company says its tunnels now cost on the order of $10 million per mile, and the price continues to come down as the company works on even more enhancements. The Prufrock boring machine can dig at a speed of 1 mile per week, which is a massive improvement. It's also powered by electricity as opposed to diesel, and it has continuous reinforcements for tunnel walls, and it's able to do a surface launch, which means it takes a U-shaped path and begins and ends its digging on the surface without separate entry or exit pits being dug, which was needed for the previous versions. However, after all said and done, this machine is still about 4 to 5 times slower than the garden snail that the Boring Company originally set out to beat. While it's taken them multiple snail lifetimes to get to this stage, the snail is only 4 to 5 times faster now, whereas when they started, back in 2017, the snail was 14 times faster. Now, some videos have surfaced of the Las Vegas Loop Tunnel showing very little action going on, which has led to skeptics to make fun of this project. These people are likely in the same category as those thinking that electric cars will never work or that it's impossible to land a rocket the size of a building. However, anecdotes are fairly useless. The trial data that the Boring Company has shared show that the Las Vegas Loop has a capacity of over 4,400 passengers per hour using 62 Tesla vehicles. That's equivalent to over 100,000 people per day, and one of the main benefits of this tunnel is sort of a real-world proof of concept. It's right under the Las Vegas Convention Center, where people go each year for events such as CES, where new technology is shown off. The Las Vegas Loop is basically free advertising, as people will either travel through it or come to see it, which costs the Boring Company nothing extra and will be a highlight of the city for years to come. Now, while the Boring Company is not yet publicly traded, there are other ways to invest during these uncertain times. With inflation at a 30-year high, diversifying your portfolio with alternative assets is more important than ever. That's why today's sponsor is Masterworks.io, a platform that lets you invest in art, a rarely talked about asset class that has proven to be a great hedge against inflation, with studies showing very low correlation to the stock market. Contemporary art historically averages a 23% real return when inflation is above 3% like it is right now. That's more than 4 times better than traditional hedges like gold and real estate. Now, traditionally, only the super wealthy have been able to invest in multi-million-dollar artwork, that is, until now. Masterworks is a revolutionary tech platform valued at over $1 billion that allows you to purchase shares of multi-million-dollar paintings by world-famous artists like Banksy, Picasso, or Monet in the same way you would buy Tesla or Apple shares. After investing in a work of art, one option is to wait for it to be sold. But what I found interesting is that Masterworks also offers a secondary market where you can trade shares directly with other investors. For example, as a conservative investor, I was looking to invest in one of the most stable artists on the platform. I decided on Picasso's Homme Assis, as Picasso has an annual appreciation of 12% a year and often leads the art market in yearly auction sales volume. As this fits my risk-return profile, I simply select the amount of shares I would like to own and invest. This really is a brilliant platform that is opening the high-end art market to everyone through trust and transparency. It's no wonder over 250,000 investors have signed up. But as a result of this high demand, there is a long wait list for those who want to invest. However, I've partnered with Masterworks to provide you with a link to let you skip that waitlist, which can be found in the description below. And thanks to Masterworks for sponsoring this video. The idea of the Boring Company's loop system likely started off as the Hyperloop idea combined with underground tunnels to avoid traffic. Elon Musk's Hyperloop is a system meant for high-speed transportation across relatively long distances. Of course, for very long-distance travel, aircraft makes more sense. But for traveling at high speeds between nearby cities, for example, Hyperloop would be optimal. The idea, however, involved pressurized tunnels and specialized vehicle hardware in order to fire a vehicle at high speeds through a tube. Surprisingly, even the tunnels that the Boring Company has built, which are capable of keeping out the water table, are also by default capable of supporting a vacuum. Now, while the Hyperloop idea didn't disappear, The loop idea was much simpler and took priority as it could be brought to market more quickly. The idea has also evolved over time, getting simpler and simpler with each iteration. Loop was originally supposed to be designed to have vehicles loaded up onto skates and fired through underground tunnels. It sort of defeated the purpose, however, to have a vehicle perfectly capable of moving itself be loaded on top of another vehicle. So the Boring Company ditched the electric skate in favor of using Teslas instead. The Teslas were originally equipped with hardware add-on retractable wheels to help center and guide the vehicle through the tunnel. But again, the Boring Company simplified this further by realizing that the software running inside the vehicle could control the car at the millisecond level, enough for positioning the car at high speeds on autopilot without the need for additional hardware. Currently, the Las Vegas Loop is set up with human drivers to pick people up, but tunnel throughput can increase dramatically in the future when the shift to autonomous software is made, in addition to drastically lowering the cost by not requiring a human driver. This latter change is looking quite doable as a subset of Tesla's full self-driving capability. Now, Tesla itself is truly the enabler of the Boring Company's plans. Without the electric vehicle maker, none of this would exist. The original plan of using an electric skate inside the tunnels was so that any type of car could be transported, but on their own, combustion engine vehicles can't be used in this type of tunnel because of higher ventilation requirements that aren't present. This means that only electric vehicles are allowed. While the electric skate idea could come back in the future, the decision made is to only allow EVs in the tunnel. This gives Tesla a massive monopoly to rule the underground transportation system. And while the Lvcc loop is just 2 tunnels right now, this isn't going to be a small endeavor. The plans for the Las Vegas Loop alone are massive, to interconnect the entire area. Boring Company is also planning to move to other cities, including potentially Fort Lauderdale and Miami, Florida. Looking 10 years ahead, for instance, this could start to become a major business powered by Teslas. Now, Elon Musk has said that the Boring Company's tunnels are open to any type of vehicle. Tesla doesn't want a monopoly on the tunnels. However, although he says this, it's important to note that Tesla's software is a critical enabler for not needing a human driver or retractable wheels for guiding the vehicle through the tunnel without hitting any walls. Other electric vehicle makers simply don't have this software, and even if Tesla gave it to them for free, it still needs to be compatible with a third-party vehicle, meaning it would need a sensor suite similar to Tesla's. If the cameras on a third-party vehicle are all different, for example, or in different locations, then the software won't work as expected. So Tesla does have a tunnel monopoly unless an automaker goes out of their way to partner with Tesla and the Boring Company and add tunnel support to their vehicle offering. Right now, this doesn't only mean that more Teslas will be sold in order to support loop systems, but anyone who experiences a boring tunnel also by default experiences a Tesla. At one point, it was estimated that 25% of people who did a test drive of a Tesla went on to purchase one. And this also really helps Tesla maintain the cool factor as the only vehicle capable of showing off the Boring Company's technology. However, there's still more to this long-term story. And by the way, stop using Yahoo Finance, stop using Google Finance, and have a look at our website, themarketisopen.com, where we have instant stock quotes and financial data going back 10 years, and it's all freely available. Analyst firm Morgan Stanley has just recently put out a research paper stating that their work on the tunnel economy has deepened their appreciation for Tesla's potential role in the build-out of renewable transport infrastructure across a range of modalities. They're actually looking at this as part of their Tesla valuation, and they think it will take a few years before it's even considered by other investors. They also view Tesla as having an enabling role to play in the development of the Boring Company. But Morgan Stanley believes that Boring appears to be accelerating change and has the potential to emerge as one of the most important infrastructure/toll road companies in the world. Again, this entire system requires seamless integration, not just for transporting people, but also for booking rides and paying for them. For example, if the Boring Company charges a toll, but Tesla wants to charge a fee for the actual transport, customers won't want to pay 2 different times or for 2 different systems. Luckily, this is easily solvable since Tesla and the Boring Company already have a strong partnership to work together. Employees who have good ideas can already move around between the Elon Musk companies, including SpaceX and Neuralink, to implement and help out with developing this infrastructure. Now, Morgan Stanley says that Boring Company has the goal of developing subterranean infrastructure 10 times faster than traditional tunnel boring machines and at 1/100th of the cost. They estimate that it will open up an addressable market capable of making $12 million per mile of tunnel on an annual basis. By 2050, Morgan Stanley sees 1,800 miles of tunnels in operation, opening up a $20 billion market. However, what's interesting with these numbers is that Morgan Stanley reminds investors that they've learned valuable lessons from electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and the space economy about the non-linearity of innovation. Yet their estimates appear to be quite linear. If today it takes a single tunnel boring machine, or TBM, 1 week to drill 1 mile, that's about 1,500 miles in 28 years from now if it was operating weekly. This is close to Morgan Stanley's 1,800 tunnel mile estimate for 2050, which appears to be extremely linear thinking. This doesn't at all seem to take into consideration increases in speed and efficiency of TBMs, but more importantly, just as Tesla is mass-producing vehicles and SpaceX plans to mass-produce starships, Boring Company can easily decide to mass-produce TBMs, which seems like the obvious next step given Elon Musk's track record. However, just 2 of the current Proof-Rock TBMs would beat out Morgan Stanley's estimates even if they took bi-weekly breaks. In a very long 28-year period, it's easy to see that Boring Company could make drastic improvements and build out a lineup of TBMs or a factory that produces them. This $12 million per mile opportunity for both Tesla and the Boring Company may be drastically below what the Boring Company is actually capable of. An exponential growth curve is hard to predict, but could be multiple times the size of Morgan Stanley's linear estimates, which use the equivalent of just 1 of today's boring machines. When tunnels are abundant enough to become part of the mainstream infrastructure, a Tesla will be the only car that can travel on any type of road on the surface or underground. But not only that, it will be the only car to also do this autonomously with Tesla's FSD software. This won't be just short, fun little trips through the tunnel like a subway system, but instead Tesla will be able to offer point-to-point travel jointly with boring tunnels. For instance, if you're on your way home and the Tesla enters a boring tunnel, it doesn't just need to drop you off at the other end of the tunnel like a shuttle would, so that you could walk or take the bus the rest of the way. There's no reason why the Tesla can't leave the tunnel and continue the journey on the surface roads to drive you all the way home. The tunnels are simply a much faster method since there's no traffic lights or street signs, and vehicles will be able to travel up to 150 miles per hour according to Elon Musk when the autonomous capability is enabled. This is almost like a carpool lane or HOV lane, which is usually much faster and allows riders to bypass traffic, except in this case, it's an ultra-high-speed road that will have only autonomous vehicles. There used to be this vision of the future that autonomous cars would eventually lead to the banning of human-driven cars on the road. But if this is focused at tunnels, which makes more sense, then it's essentially a brand new set of roads designed for autonomous Teslas, literally from the ground up. So do you think that the Boring Tesla partnership will face any competition over the next decades to come, and from whom? And how big do you think that this market could actually be by 2050? Don't forget to check out our Masterworks sponsor link in the description below. Please hit the like button and subscribe. We would really appreciate that. And a huge shout out to all of our patrons that help to support our channel. Your support helps us to continue to make great content. Thank you guys so much for watching.